Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to this Code Live. This is my first Code Live of 2025, and I'm really glad to be back. My name is Philippe Ozil. I'm a developer advocate at Salesforce. And in this session today, we're going to talk about sharing files with Agentforce. So it's going to be a mix of doing a bit of Apex with custom actions and exploring the features that are built as part of Agentforce that let us uh, basically arrange all of this together in a really nice scenario. This should be a pretty short session. I'm gonna show you the content and then we can open up the questions. I've also shared similar content in a short video recently, and there was also a blog post that came out, I think it was last week. So if you want to dig further, you'll find everything there along with a GitHub code sample as well. All right. So, enough about this. Let's get into the content and let's talk about how we can make all of this work. So, I'm going to drive you through the scenario and we're going to see how this can be implemented. I'll also share some of the pitfalls of my demo implementation and how you could take it further for a production use case, basically. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to walk through the demo scenario. All right. Switching over now to my Salesforce org. For once, this is a sandbox. I normally don't do things on sandboxes. I'm more of a scratch-on person, but that'll work as well. And what I want to share today is the scenario that I've put together about how you can share files with Agentforce. So in our org, we have an account with a contact, and we're going to work with the Acme account here, which is one of our customers. And they've placed an order, and what we need to do simply is basically generate an invoice for the order and send it to their procurement manager, which is the contact here, Julie Tennyson. So obviously we can do all of this with screen flows, we can do all of this with regular flows, we can do quick action. All of this could be done with clicks and code like you would do normally. But what I want to show you today is a slightly different use case that basically takes full advantage of the Agentforce capabilities. So I've already prepared my agent there. We'll get to the agent builder next. I just need to activate it, and I'm going to show you how this works live. So let me refresh my page now, but we have activated the agent. This is a Spring org, by the way. So you'll notice small changes. For example, the icon here is a bit different. We've renamed a bit what used to be Copilot into Agentforce to use the latest branding. But the way it works is very similar. Now, for those of you who are not super familiar with Agentforce, it's our AI assistant, and it has a number of agents which are here to help us do day-to-day tasks. And what I've configured here, and we'll see that later on when I go into the configuration, is a set of instructions and a set of custom actions that our agent can take to help us. Now, what I'm gonna do next is I'm actually gonna take a prompt that I've already prepared ahead. I'll save a bit of time because you don't want to see me typing and adding a bunch of typos. That'll be better. And so what I'm gonna do here is that I'm going to ask it to do something for me. I already prepared a prompt saying generate invoice for the current order. So because Agentforce is able to figure out the context of my page, it's able to identify that I'm looking at the Acme account. It's able to find that I'm looking at the orders and this specific order, which is open. And then draft an email to the procurement manager. Notice I didn't name the contact directly. I used actually their job title. Procurement manager is actually the title of Julie. So Agentforce will be able to identify Julie, and then some specific content here, which is of interest for our session, thank them for the order, and share a public password protected link for the invoice for the current order. And you can see the result is pretty interesting here. It's able to figure out what's the right contact, extract the email address from our contact, draft the email as expected with the thank you notice, and most interestingly here, you'll find this here, which is a link to the invoice with a password and expiry date. So let's just check that this does work. I'm going to copy the password here, and I'm going to open this link in a new incognito window so that we can make sure that it is indeed our document. And if everything goes well, we should see a PDF come up, which looks like it didn't show. All right. Well, normally the PDF here, I can tell you. Oh, maybe we're going to do some live debugging, so that's exciting. But yeah, the URL looks. Yeah, URL looks good. All right. Well, we'll debug that and we'll see how it goes. But the point here is that it's able to retrieve the invoice for the order. The order, actually, something I forgot to mention is that the invoice is not even stored in Salesforce. It's able to retrieve it from a third-party system and then create a shareable link and pass it on in the email. And let's see really the details about how this is generated to see how complex it is, in fact, yet simple. All right, so switching now to Agent Builder, I'm going to show you what I've built behind the scenes to make this work. So first of all, I created a special topic called Invoice Management. Now, this topic is a set of instructions and a set of actions that regroup everything that has to do with our orders and invoice. And I wrote these description. I also asked the agent not to share document IDs in the conversation because that's not something that we're interested in. And also asked it specifically to use the draft or revise email action when generating an email, so we can have rich text and the control buttons to edit it or to send it. Now, the other thing that is interesting when looking at the topic here is that we've added two custom actions, and these are generate invoice and generate public document link. These are the two custom actions that I've wrote using Apex. I'm going to run you through the code so that you can see it. But before I do this, I want to show you how this runs in the context of Agent Builder. To do that, we're going to see that I couldn't normally use directly the same prompt that I've been using, because if I were to just take the same prompt that I had earlier, we would be missing the conversation context. So because we're in the builder here, we're not really in the context of the record page that I was looking at just previously when I ran my demo in my org. So there's something new here that is called conversation previews. That's happening, that's going live as part of the spring release. And when I click on this icon here, it brings us the ability to set up the context of the conversation when we're testing things in Agent Builder. So that's really neat, because in the past, we had to tweak a bit our prompts to specify the full context, saying we were looking at the account record, we were talking about the Julie Tennyson contact of this account, etc., etc. But here, what I can do simply is simulate my app, my page, and everything. So I'm going to take the sales app like I was looking at. I'm going to take a record page for an account, and the account was the Acme account. I can also tweak the language if I want to experiment prompts in other languages. And I click apply. So this sets the test context for the agent, simulating the fact that we are on the account page with the right data. And then I can use the exact same prompt that I was running before. And normally the results should be the same. You should get the link and the draft email in my response there. Let's give it a few more seconds to get the link there. And come on, suspense is killing me. Right, here we go. Cool. So you can see the output is the same, but now in the context of Agent Builder, we can see what happened and the actual reasoning, what we call the plan. And we can see first that it's selected the right topic. We found that it's related to the invoice management topic. There's another topic, by the way. It could pick the general CRM topic, which is one of the default topics that is loaded in Agentforce. But here it was able to find my custom topic. And it was able to pick the right actions. The first one that it picked was generate invoice. And you can see here, it passed it the right order ID. It was able to figure out what's the correct order ID. When I specified in my prompt the current order, it was able to look at the Acme account page, looking at the related orders, figuring out what's the latest and what's the current one. In my case, it's pretty easy, only had one, but you could fine tune this. And if it didn't find which order ID it was, it could ask me, which order are you talking about? But it got the order ID, and then it was able to call the action generate invoice. This is a bit of Apex. Basically, this Apex code will get me the invoice file, which is actually hosted on a Heroku site. This is the dummy account, the dummy invoice that I should be retrieving. I've exposed it with an API, so it's under /orders, the order ID, and then the invoice. So this is what we should have seen a couple of minutes ago when I was previewing the hidden link. In any case, we'll see what happens when we retrieve this file. That's the first action, generating invoice, retrieving this file here from Heroku or any third-party system with an API call, and storing it as a Salesforce record ID, Salesforce document. This is this document. Then the next action that was triggered is generate public document link. So whenever we download a document in Salesforce, you have to be logged in to view it, and you also have to have the proper access rights. But there is a nice feature, this part of the way we handle documents called document. Sorry, I forgot the name. Document distribution, and that allows us to share a document publicly. And we'll see that there are a number of options we can use to do this. And here I've explored some of them. For example, I'm able to specify that I want it password protected. I can share the document publicly, or I can decide to set a password. So in my action inputs, I said, this is the document I want to share, and I want you to generate a password for me. I've also hard-coded some settings as part of my action. I've also set an expiry date. The expiry date is 7 days from today. And so you can see here in the output, it got me the expiry date, the password that it generated for me, and the URL of the document that it got. Let's try again, by the way. Let's see if this time I'm more lucky. I'm going to grab again the password, see if, oops, come on, grab the password and see if the document link works a bit better. Let's see. Still no. Okay, right. We'll debug. That's fine. We should see normally here the same PDF as we had in the Heroku window. So let's see. In any case, we got the URL, we got the password, even got the expiry date. You can see, by the way, I didn't mention that, but the expiry date was also shared as part of the email draft. So there was one final action, drafting the email, and for this, it got all my my requirements, thanking them, etc., sharing the password link and the expiry date, etc., etc. And it got us the email template here with, by the way, rich text that allows us to inline the invoice link. All right, now let's take a look at how this is built, and by the way, maybe debug it, because you can see here for some reason the action didn't work exactly as I expected it to work. The document wasn't exactly shared. So again, there are two custom actions, and let's take a look at the configuration of those actions. The first one is generate invoice. So this is a custom agent action built with Apex, and this is, as you can see here, it's actually tied to an Apex class. So we could take a look at the configuration, but we can also do this by looking at the invocable action properties of this class. That's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to switch over now to Visual Studio Code, and we're going to see how this is implemented. Oops. There we go. So this is the GitHub repo that I mentioned earlier, but it has been shared along with the blog post. And you can see here we have two Apex classes in this project. The first one is my generate invoice action, and the second one is generating the public document link. I've decided to split them so that they can be reused in a number of scenarios, and that's really, I think, the added value of working with agents. Having modular actions allow you to combine them in a number of ways. If you're building a screen flow or something like that, it'll be a bit more complicated to integrate all of this together and run through an unlimited amount of scenarios. But with actions like this, you can see I was able to combine those actions and come up with the email draft, for example. So let's take a look at the first action. As I mentioned, Apex agent actions are built with invocable actions. So you can see the annotation invocable method. Whenever you write a custom Apex action, what I recommend is that you provide labels and descriptions, because these are being reused when you configure the action. So when I was looking at the setup of the action here, all the labels and the instructions like generating an invoice, etc., or even the property descriptions are specified already in Apex. So you don't have to retype them when you create the action if you specify them directly in the code. It saves time and it avoids you from having disconnected experiences between what the admin will specify and what you have in the action configuration. So looking back into this, before I jump into the code of the method, quick word on the input and outputs. As an input, I have an invoice request, a list of invoice requests, and I'm putting a list of invoice. These are very simple subclasses with just one parameter each. For the input, we are expecting an order ID. This is a required field, and this is pointing to an order ID. Here I've put it as a string, but it doesn't matter. You could use an actual ID if you wanted to, and you could double check that it is indeed an order ID. For the context of the demo, I will be honest, the Heroku side doesn't care about the validity of the ID. It just expects a string, but obviously you would want to make the proper checks there, making sure, for example, the user has the rights to retrieve the file, the ID is valid, etc., etc. We're not doing this in this small demo, but that is something you could check there. And then for the output, I'm giving back a content document ID. And this is actually a good time for me to dive into some explanations about how documents work in Salesforce. So the model is a bit tricky for newcomers, and there's one thing I need to explain. There is a set of objects. So there is at the top of the chain, there's content document. Then there is content version. And in our case, we're going one extra level. We're going to do this content distribution objects. That's third level down. So one document can have multiple versions, and for each of these versions, you can share the document more than once. So these are the three objects we're going to be working with, and we'll see that more when we look at the second action, creating the public document link. So let's take now a look at the heart of the action. Now, because this is an invocable action, it is bulkified. You always have lists as input and output. Some people tend to do a shortcut here and they only take the first element of this list and only work with one. In my case, I did the full bulkify dance, iterating over the list and trying to bulkify as much as I could. For now, in Agentforce, there is no real bulkification call. The actions are being called separately, but it's always safer to bulkify your code, especially since it could be also called by a flow. So best practices here. Just don't only consider the first input parameter here, consider the entire list of input parameters. So what am I doing? The first call here is a private method to download the invoice based on the order ID, and that's really the heart of what my action is doing. It's actually doing an HTTP REST call on my Heroku, supposedly accounting service orders, and then calling the URL we saw earlier with the account ID. Now, this gets me the file as a resource. And what I'm doing is I'm reading the file content, my file binary content, by calling get body as blob, extracting the document there, the binary content of the document, and returning it. This here is a good occasion for me to give you the first kind of warning. When you play with documents, when you work with documents, in Apex, you have to be very careful, especially if you manipulate binary content of document. There is a huge risk here because when you work with more than one document or larger documents, there's a risk of exceeding the Apex heap size. If you're taking like a large document, or not even so large, but like a document that is like 40 megabytes or 20 megabytes, it will exceed the Apex heap size and you'll see some errors there. So that's the first limitation of this action. I want to be very honest about it. This scenario here is good for a demo use case. It would work with small invoice files, but if you need to work with larger PDF files, like for example the release notes, which are probably around 100 megabytes, that won't work because you'll exceed the Apex heap size. If you want to work with larger documents, I'll talk about it later, but you would have to go with a middleware and not manipulate the binary content of the document within Apex. But let's just say that it works for now. Our invoice document is pretty small, so it's fine. We retrieve the invoice document here. And what we do is that we take the document itself, we prepare a new content version. So that's kind of a trick here. We don't even need to declare the document and attach a first version. By inserting directly a version, it will create the parent document. So I can directly work at the version level, but for the rest of the execution, I will need to fetch the parent, and that's what I'm doing next. So I'm inserting those documents here if there are more than one invoice. But then since I need to work at the document level, and I need to do another search to retrieve the parent document ID, so the content document ID from the content versions files that I just inserted. This is because when we insert the first version, it creates the parent object. So I don't have, at the time of insertion here, I don't yet have the ID of the parent document. But I do when I do a search, a query after with the versions that I just inserted. It's kind of weird because I'm inserting and then immediately refetching the same thing, except this field wasn't present when I inserted, or just after I inserted. In any case, once I get the list of those document content version ID, I can prepare a list of invoices and return those document IDs. Now we can check that it did work by looking at our org. So that's the first step of the debug operation I'm going to do. I'm going to go back in my org. I want to check if my user sees those files. So looking at my user, what's this thing? I can see that I was able to get those invoices, so they were downloaded. Seems like the problem is more with the link for the invoices. All right, no problem. Let's check it out. So we got the invoices, and these are the ones that are retrieved from Heroku. And so the next step of the process is to call the second action to generate a public document link from the documents that we just retrieved. So what does it do? Let me just minimize this a bit. Oops, there we go. So the second action here does two things. It will generate for us the link, and it will return what we need. And there are a number of input and output parameters. Some of them are optional. So let's take a look at the inputs. For the inputs, actually, let me show this. For the inputs, we're taking link requests. And this time around, there are a number of parameters we have. Only one of them is mandatory. That's the document ID, the content document ID. And the rest is optional. We can decide to set an expiry date or not set it. As I mentioned earlier, if we don't set it, I've hard-coded an automatic expiry date of 7 days. I think it's the best practice not to leave things open in the wild forever. So I've hard-coded this as part of the action. And then we can decide to set a password protection or not. This is up to you when you call it. And you can see that the agent is able to intelligently pass the right parameters to the action when the user is saying, I want it password protected in a prompt. It's able to figure out that it needs to check this checkbox there, or pass this boolean to true. And then there's the output, which is a list of links, the URL obviously to the public, to publicly accessible version of the document, the expiry time that was calculated for us, and the password that was generated. In this case, we can't specify a password. The password is automatically generated for us. That's part of the way the content distribution works. So how does this action works? We start by retrieving the list of documents, IDs that we're going to retrieve. Again, this is bulkified, so it seems a bit more verbose than it should be. But that's because I'm not only considering the first request, I'm considering all requests, and I'm bulkifying my invocable action here. So if we want to use it in the flow again, it's also compatible with the flow. So retrieving the content document IDs, putting them in a set, then retrieving the latest document versions. Because there could be more than one version, this action is only focusing on the latest version. I didn't want to set the action to work on a specific version. I only want to take it so that it works on the latest version. So what I'm going to do here is create a SOAP query that gets me the latest version of the document. There's a convenient isLatest flag on the content version ID object that allows me to retrieve only the latest version here. Note that I also use the in keyword when setting my list of documents. I think that's something not enough people do. Instead of having a super long where clause with document content ID equals X or document ID equals y, or document content ID equals blah, blah, blah. I've wrapped everything here into a set, as you can see in the first bit here, and I use the in keyword here to pass direct set so that it only searches for this set without having a query that is too long and too many or clauses in there. So that's a little trick there, which helps us be more efficient in our query. Okay, so we retrieve the latest document versions. I'm putting them in a map here to quickly retrieve them. Then I'm preparing the content distribution record. So this is the object that lets us expose the publicly accessible link. And there are a number of properties that it supports. I've only used just a few of them. You can probably expand this actually to support more things. The things that I found interesting were viewing the document in the browser instead of just downloading it directly. The ability to set a password, and the expiry date. And you can see here I've used either here the expiry date specified in the parameters of the action, or a default expiry date of now plus 7 days. Notice that I've used here the conditional operators here to use a default value. If there's no value in link request expiry date, then I fall back to the default value here. These are part of the new operators that were included, that are added to the Apex language a couple of maybe releases ago, maybe 2 years ago, I can't remember. But they're rarely used, and I think here it's a good use case. Instead of having a series of if or even a ternary operation, you can quickly use this. It's a great use case for defaulting in case you have a default value that you want to pass. All right, then I get my content distribution object for all of my document. I insert them, and same thing as before, we have to requery those content distribution object just after we inserted them, because what happens behind the scenes is that when we set that we wanted a password, the password is being generated asynchronously. So we need to refetch them so that we get the password there. And then finally we output this in the output parameters. So it's a bit of back and forth when inserting and requerying the same object, but it's to get this password field and also the link, which wasn't present immediately after we inserted the object. And this gets us the links. Now, I do have a theory about why this did not work in my environment. It could be that there is a specific setting in my in Sandbox. Not entirely sure if there are some limitations about sharing documents in sandboxes. But let's see. When we go back in my in the agent builder, and we're going to see if I can make it work one last time. I'm going to open the agent in the builder, and I'm going to run the prompt one last time. Again, I need to specify my context. Sales app on the record page, looking at me account. There we go. And then picking up the prompt that I had before. What is it here? And okay, here we go. Let's see. And there you go. All right, copy the new password hash here. Open window in incognito. Try out the document. Still doesn't work. I don't know. The errors here are probably not related to what I'm trying to do, but in any case, it should work. I mean, it doesn't work when I'm in production, so I guess there's something specific to sandboxes. So that's a quick view about how this works. You can see it's not a lot of code, and it's in fact pretty quick to set up, especially if you're if you know the different objects and you know the tricks about refetching the documents once you insert it. I want to call out the limitations of this implementations now. I mentioned earlier the first problem or first risk that there is playing with the retrieving, the binary content of the documents, downloading them within Apex. So that's the first limitation here. And the second limitation that I want to call out if you do something like this is that whatever means you use to retrieve the document, whether it's Apex or something else, there is another constraint. If you're saving the document in Salesforce, you have to be very careful because you do have some limits in terms of data storage. So when you go to your org and you go in the company information, you have to be careful about storage capacity of your org. So here, this is a small. This actually is a pretty big sandbox, but there are some limits in storage. And when you store files, well, it does count towards your allocation. So if you start sharing a number of documents, remember that in this scenario, we're downloading the document. Each time we're doing a share request, we're not checking if we already downloaded the document. So we'll create multiple copies of the same document. And it's probably not the best place to store them within Salesforce. But in any case, you can imagine the same scenario that I built here, but using a third-party host for your documents. And I think something like Amazon S3 would be a great use case. And this brings me to a similar scenario that I've implemented maybe 4 or 5 years ago. We used to have a thing called functions, and with Salesforce functions, we had the ability to call third-party code to retrieve and store documents. And in one of these scenarios, I've built a small integration with. Let's see, maybe find the repo. There was I built a small integration that allowed us to pull documents back and forth from S3. So this could be combined with what I'm showing you today. The ability to retrieve documents from Salesforce. The only thing that you need to do, however, is to put in a middleware in the middle, whether it's Heroku or something else, that would download the document and manipulate it for you. So that's just an example of what's possible. There are plenty of other ideas you could come up with, but the whole goal of this is to write not a lot of code and get a lot of flexibility. I think that's really where Agentforce works the best. Instead of having a lot of flows and a lot of Apex, the ability to have those small modular things and like have full flexibility about how you use them when you write the prompts, it's pretty convenient. That's it for what I want to share today. I saw that there are some questions in the chats and comments. Let's see. All right, first question, does the download link work the same way in the embedded chat in the experience side? Yes, absolutely. For now, there's only one limitation. However, I think in the current version, when you use a service agent, there's no support for rich text. So the link wouldn't look exactly the same. It would be a link that the user would have to copy paste, but the link would still work. And I think the team is fixing the support for rich text in the embedded chats. So hopefully it will behave the same. Maybe not this release, but after a patch or something. The goal is really to have the same experience on both sides, whether it's an internal agent that is only customer focused, or employee focused, or whether it's a custom agent that is service oriented for customers on the Experience Cloud site. All right, another comment actually from Nikit. Oops, sorry. Okay, not really related to this, but still I can share. Talking about where we would share sample code with Nimbus plugins in LVC recipes. It's a good question. These days we're working a lot of it on Agentforce. I think the priority of this has been scaled out a bit. We should revisit at some point, but yeah, it's definitely not coming up in the near term. We're really focusing on our latest sample app right now, which is Coral Clouds, and expanding on what we can do around Data Cloud and Agentforce. By the way, thanks for the shout out for the recent update for Data Cloud collections. That's something we just released, and I think it's pretty cool. Any questions? I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and take on questions if you have. Since I'm talking and while you type your questions, I want to mention that I'll be again on codeLive next week, and I'll be talking about Agentforce Testing Center if everything goes well. There's been a slight delay in the release of this feature, but I got my hands on an early version, and it's pretty exciting. So I hope to be able to dedicate the next codeLive session on this because it's pretty cool. All right, I see a question. When will we be able to use the agent builder in custom solutions? So that is on the roadmap. There are a number of things because there are different ways you could integrate between Agentforce and third-party agentic solutions. Um, there is already something you can do today. For example, you can call a third-party LLM within Agentforce actions. So that's the first thing you can do. And I think my colleague Mohit recently shared a video of how you could do it. He built a video in which you could call a model that talks about um, a specific LLM that deals with medical questions that is hosted on a third-party provider, and through the OpenLLM connector, you're able to add it into Salesforce and call it with Agent Builder with a specific action. That's one thing you can do. In the future, what you could also do when this goes live, so that's probably after TDX, there's going to be an Agentforce API which will unlock additional scenarios uh, for inter-agent um, exchanges. So you'll be able to communicate between agents. You'll be able to call agents in a headless way, so outside of any UI. And I think that's also super interesting. But it's a bit too early for me to expand on this. A lot of this is still in progress and in work, so I'm afraid I can't share more on this for now. I think there are going to be some pretty cool things on TDX because the teams are working to show this in demo. So make sure you watch at least the streams if you're not going to attend. Another question: how to build test cases for Agentforce? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to talk about next week. So there are two things in testing. There is testing the action logic, and in this case, it's pretty straightforward because what you would be testing is the source code, your Apex code, essentially. So it works the same way as regular Apex code. You'll be testing the invocable action. So that's testing the logic of individual actions. But then there's a new layer that you need to test. That's testing the reasoning of your agent. And that's something that wasn't possible up till now. But thanks to the new feature of the Agentforce Testing Center that is supposed to go live this week, you're going to be able to create test plans to test the reasoning of the agent. And I don't want to give spoilers on what I'm going to share next week, but essentially you'll be able to provide a list of prompts and assert on expected behaviors. And now again, this is pretty tricky because the whole magic of AI is that it is non-deterministic, meaning that you can ask maybe 5 times, 10 times, 100 times the same prompt. You will see variations in the answer and behavior. And so the goal of this product, the Agentforce Testing Center, is to be able to get some degree of confidence that the agent will behave correctly in a number of situations. You'll never get 100% confidence, but it's something that helps you detect flaws and regressions in the way it reasons. And you can also identify pitfalls or, I would say, dead ends in conversations where it wouldn't behave as expected. So you'll see all of that next week, same time, just same day. I hope will be unlocked. The release will go out smoothly. I wanted to try it out this morning for me, but it wasn't out as expected. So stay tuned. In any case, I do have some other backup topics that I could share, and it's just going to be a matter of time until we will be able to get hands on this testing solution. All right. Any other questions while I'm here? I'll give you one more minute. Just refresh myself. All right, I guess there are no more questions. So I just want to thank you everyone for attending today. Well, I hope to see you again next week for the next session. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day and see you all. Bye.